On Monday, December the 9th, one of my favorite poets died. Hello and welcome back to Bookish, and welcome to a kind of unusual video on my channel, and probably a lot shorter than my normal video, and that's because my favorite American poet died on Monday. Her name was Nikki Giovanni. Many of you probably heard of her. She was a fairly incredible person, and I came late to her work, and knowing anything about her and her poetry and her life story in lots of ways really drew me in and made me a big fan of her poetry. I used to talk about poetry on my channel a little bit more than I do now because, you know, right now I talk about poetry almost never. But when I did, I read a poem or two from Nikki Giovanni on my channel. Giovanni was a political activist. She grew up, you know, in relative poverty because of some things that happened with her family. She did get to attend college. In the 1960s, she became kind of a leading figure in what was known as the Black Arts Movement, which kind of morphed into or was connected to the Black Power movement in the late 60s and 1970s. She was an outspoken critic, an outspoken supporter of civil rights and the Black Power movement. She, even at a very young age, she moved in some fairly lofty circles. She appeared several times on a television kind of interview magazine show called Soul. One of the most famous episodes, I think, when she was on there, she talked to James Baldwin. If I can find a link to that or those discussions, I'll leave them down below so you can see Nikki Giovanni, I think, really holding her own against James Baldwin, who was, you know, already famous, already looked to as a leader and a thinker. And I'm really impressed by those interviews. She later went on to be a professor at several colleges, and the last one of which was Virginia Tech, where she was, I think she was a professor there for something like 22 years, including the years in which the massacre took place, the mass shooting took place at Virginia Tech. And so all I wanted to do for the rest of this video is just read one of Nikki Giovanni's poems, one which I think, to me, looking at them, seemed the most appropriate for the day, and then I'll leave the video at that. This poem is called Nikki Rosa. Childhood remembrances are always a drag if you're black. You always remember things like living in Woodlawn with no inside toilet. And if you become famous or something, they never talk about how happy you were to have your mother all to yourself and how good the water felt when you got your bath from one of those big tubs that folks in Chicago barbecue in. And somehow, when you talk about home, it never gets across how much you understood their feelings as the whole family attended meetings about Hollydale. And even though you remember, your biographers never understand your father's pain as he sells his stock and another dream goes. And though you're poor, it isn't poverty that concerns you. And though they fought a lot, it isn't your father's drinking that makes any difference, but only that everybody is together and you and your sister have happy birthdays and very good Christmases. And I really hope no white person ever has cause to write about me because they never understand. Black love is black wealth. And they'll probably talk about my hard childhood and never understand. All the while, I was quite happy.